Reflections on the Art of Living by Joseph Cambell, a Joseph Campbell companion. Selected and edited by Diane K. Osbon. Introduction. There is no place in this new kind of physics both for the field and matter, for the field is the only reality. Albert Einstein. It is on this very point that Eastern mysticism and Western science meet. Tat tvam asi, thou art that, is the bottom line of Joseph Campbell's philosophy. There is no matter, everything is the field. The separation and limitation are in our own minds. To separate oneself from one's group, to say, oh no, we are different, is to set oneself against wholeness. To separate ourselves from the whole is to cut our options and to erect the walls of our own prison. When we create duality in our own thoughts, when we create reality in our thoughts and lives, we have created opposition. In an intimate seminar of 10 people gathered at Esalen Institute for 1 month in 1983, Joseph Campbell processed each one's life with a professional sensitivity. Our total immersion in the mythic realm resulted in such a cohesiveness and intensity that the director of Esalen asked Joseph if he could sit in on one session. Without missing a beat, Joseph's response was, that would not be appropriate. A sacred circle had been created. Within it, it was safe to plumb one's depth, express doubts, and to trade stories of magic and rapture. The seminar ended with Joseph saying that he was certain that it had been a destiny gathering. The real humanity of this elegant power field of a man was his gift to us. Like Parzival, quote, he was not an angel or a saint, but a living, questing man of deeds, gifted with the paired virtues of courage and compassion, to which was added loyalty. It was through his steadfastness in these, not supernatural grace, that he won at last to the Grail. The inspiration for this book came from the time spent with Joseph. The text has been taken in large part from the month-long intensive seminar at Esalen. Appropriate quotes from his book, set in italics, have been added for balance and radiance. The aphorisms of the opening section, In the Field, as well as those throughout the rest of the book, are favorite expressions of his, recorded in my journals over the years in his company. The rest of the book is divided into 3 parts, which correspond to 3 levels or stages of consciousness. The first part, Living in the World, deals primarily with the pelvic energy centers, survival, sex, power. Here, Joseph shares his thoughts regarding money, the opposite sex, patterns of aging, death, marriage, war, procreation, ritual, etc. He teaches that doing what someone else wants us to do is slave morality and the path to disease and disintegration of the spirit and body. He advises us to listen when someone is speaking, not to the words, but to what is talking. It is often pride, malice, or ignorance. For example, when someone tells us that we are selfish, it is often because we are not doing what they want us to do. As we restrict our options, we restrict our worldview, and with sufficient restriction, we can become the world's policeman, who zealously guards to see that others do not break out of the box that he has built for himself. The next stage, coming into awareness, opens us to the possibilities of our own deep love and truth. As we love ourselves, we move toward our own bliss, by which Joseph Campbell meant our highest enthusiasm. The word entheos means God-filled. Moving toward that which fills us with the Godhood, that place where time is not, is all we need to do to change the world around us. Then do we, naturally and without effort, love others and allow them to move about their self-imposed limitations and in their own ways. The goal is to evolve to that place where the energy that had been projected outward to correct the world is turned around to correct oneself, to get on our track and to dance in balance between the worlds. As we evolve into the final level, living in the sacred, we see that we can choose to lift the veil of illusion, Maya, to reveal the kingdom of the Father that is spread upon the earth. For we are the Maya makers. It is then that the rhythms of the spheres moves through us, and the universal heartbeat is our own. Joseph taught me to see beyond the symbols to the riches they represent. Those who cannot see beyond the symbols, he remarked, are like diners going into a restaurant and eating the menu, rather than the meal it describes. There is a good deal of menu eating in the world, and the result is a feeling of emptiness and an impoverishment of the spirit. Being in his presence, one realized that everything he focused on, in nature or in conversation, was a spark that illuminated another volume in the vast library of his mind, a bottomless spring of riches and sustenance. His own countenance revealed that he was his own greatest resource for wonder and magic. It is not surprising that his first love was the American Indian, to whom every part of nature is sacred. Living in this rapture is health, and following your bliss, understood as Joseph meant it, is not self indulgent but vital. Your whole physical system knows that this is the way to be alive, and in this world, and in this way to give the world the very best that you have to offer. There is a track just waiting for there for each of us. There is a track just waiting there for each of us. And once on it, doors will be open and that were not open before and would not open for anyone else. Everything does start clicking along, and yes, even Mother Nature herself supports the journey. I have found that you do have only to take that one step towards the gods, and they will then take 10 steps toward you. That step, the heroic first step of the journey, is out of or over the edge of your boundaries, and is often must be taken before you know that you will be supported. The hero's journey has been compared to birth. It starts with warm and snug. It starts with being warm and snug in a safe place. Then comes a signal growing more insistent that is time to leave. To stay beyond your time is to putrefy. Without the blood and tearing of pain, there is no new life. What is the meaning of life? Joseph was often asked, and he would respond, there is no meaning. We bring the meaning to it. Like Carl Jung, he saw the approach of old age not as a mere diminution of life, but as a time of blooming. If we have filled up the beaker of life and allowed to catch fire everything that needs to be consumed, then the quiet of old age is welcome. If too much life remains unlived, we approach the threshold of age with unsatisfied demands that turn our glances backward. As Jung said, an old man who cannot bid farewell to life appears as feeble and sickly as a young man who is unable to embrace it. Joseph taught that we can choose to live in rapture that is not out there in some other place or person, that we don't have to go somewhere to have something or someone. It is here, it is here, it is here. A shift in consciousness is all that it takes. Quote, unless you have become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. As children, we knew when to be still and watchful, so as to bring just the right people and creatures toward us. It was easy, and the magic was everywhere. We lose that childhood magic in the world of masks, but we are meant to return to the child. As Joseph put it, the lion of self-discovery is meant to kill that dragon whose every scales read, thou shalt. After working with Joseph, honoring the birth of the spiritual and creative child within myself sanctifies the Christmas season now. The lighted tree is the wish-fulfilling tree, the world tree, the axis mundi. And as the tender plants push up and reach for the heavens, I celebrate Easter as release and renewal, leaving the Earth Mother to go to the Father Spirit. Every egg now in the cosmic egg, the unshelled chick, symbolic of the birth of the Spirit. Each rabbit is a symbol of the moon's cycle of loss and gain, ever changing, ever the same. An old Apache storyteller reminds us, the plants, rocks, fire, water, all are alive. They watch us and see our needs. They see when we have nothing to protect us, and it is then that they reveal themselves and speak to us. I remember the quote Joseph loved from the Gnostic Gospel of St. Thomas. Cleave a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, you will find me there. Why are there trees I never walk under, but large and melodious thoughts descend upon me? Walt Whitman asks, I think they hang there winter and summer on those trees and only drop fruit as I pass. The people of Findhorn, Scotland, believe that the consciousness of trees goes beyond the sawmill, that they are aware of the homes into which they are made and the people they shelter. This home, this chair, this page. It is here, it is here, it is here. Diane K. Osbon. And now, Reflections on the Art of Living by Joseph Cambell. Chapter, In the Field. The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. What you have to do, you do with play. Life is without meaning. You bring the meaning to it. The meaning of life is whatever you ascribe it to be. Being alive is the meaning. The warrior's approach is to say yes to life, yea to it all. Participate joyfully in the sorrows of the world. We cannot cure the world of sorrows, but we can choose to live in joy. When we talk about settling the world's problems, we're barking up the wrong tree. The world is perfect. It's a mess. It has always been a mess. We are not going to change it. Our job is to straighten out our own lives. We must be willing to get rid of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. The old skin has to be shed before the new one can come. If we fix on the old, we get stuck. When we hang on to any form, we are in danger of putrefaction. Hell is life drying up. The hoarder, the one in us that wants to keep, to hold on, must be killed. If we are hanging on onto the form now, we're not going to have the form next. You can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. Destruction before creation. Out of perfection, nothing can be made. Every process involves breaking something up. The earth must be broken to bring forth life. If the seed does not die, there is no plant. Bread results from the death of wheat. Life lives on lives. Our own life lives on the acts of other people. If you are life worthy, you can take it. What we are really living for is the experience of life, both the pleasure and the pain and the pleasure. The world is a match for us. We are a match for the world. Opportunities to find deeper powers within ourselves come when life seems most challenging. Negativism is the pain and ferocity of life. Negativism to the pain and ferocity of life is negativism to life. Negativism to the pain and ferocity of life is negativism to life. We are not there until we can say yay to it all. To take a righteous attitude toward anything is to denigrate it. Awe is what moves us forward. As you proceed through life, follow your own path. Birds will shit on you. Don't bother to brush it off. Getting a comedic view of your situation gives you spiritual distance. Having a sense of humor saves you. Eternity is a dimension of here and now. The divine lives within you. Live from your own center. Your real duty is to go away from the community to find your bliss. The society is the enemy when it imposes its structures on the individual. On the dragon there are many scales. Every one of them says, "Thou shalt." Kill the dragon, thou shalt. When one has killed that dragon, one has become the child. Breaking out is following your bliss pattern. Quitting the old place, starting your hero journey, following your bliss. You throw off yesterday as the snake sheds its skin. Follow your bliss. The heroic life is living the individual adventure. There is no security in following the call to adventure. Nothing is exciting if you know what the outcome is going to be. If to refuse the call means stagnation, what you don't experience positively, you will experience negatively. You enter the forest at the darkest point, where there is no path. Where there is a way or path, it is someone else's path. You are not on your own path if you follow someone else's way. You are not going to realize your potential. The goal of the hero trip down the jewel point is to find those levels in the psyche that open, and finally open to the mystery of yourself being Buddha consciousness or the Christ. That is the journey. It's all about finding that still point in your mind where commitment drops away. It is by going down into the abyss that we recover the treasures of life. Where you stumble, there lies your treasure. The very cave you are afraid to enter turns out to be the source of what you are looking for. The damned thing in the cave was so dreaded has become the center. You find the jewel and it draws you off. In loving the spiritual, you cannot despise the earthly. In loving the spiritual, you cannot despise the earthly. The purpose of the journey is compassion. When you have come past the pairs of opposites, you have reached compassion. The goal is to bring the jewel back to the world, to join the two things together. The separateness apparent in the world is secondary. Beyond the world of opposites is an unseen but experienced unity and identity in us all. Today the planet is the only proper in-group. You must return to the bliss and integrate it. The return is seeing the radiance everywhere. Sri Ramakrishna said, "Do not seek illumination unless you seek it as a man whose hair is on fire seeks a pond." If you want the whole thing, the gods will give it to you, but you must be ready for it. The goal is to live with godlike composure, on the full rush of energy, like Dionysus riding the leopard without being torn to pieces. A bit of advice given to a young Native American at the time of his initiation. As you go the way of life, you will see a great chasm. Jump. It is not as wide as you think. Living in the world. God had a garden, and he needed a gardener, so he created Adam. Adam was bored. He was doing the job, but it was no fun. God saw that he needed entertainment, so he created the animals to entertain him. All Adam could think of to do with the animals was to give them names. Then God said, "Well, here goes." So he put Adam to sleep and pulled Eve out of his rib. As Joyce said, she was the cutlet-sized consort. Then the trouble started, and we were in the game. Male and female, life and death, good and evil, problems of opposites. The trouble that began was the discovery of duality. That was the fall. There was no real recognition of duality before this. How did duality take place in the garden? There were two trees that were forbidden trees. You can eat the fruit of any tree in the place, but not of this or of that one. The tree number was the tree. The tree number one was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, of duality. The tree number two was the tree of the knowledge of eternal life. The serpent, who represents lunar consciousness and life in the field of time, where there are pairs of opposites, saw Eve and thought she must be bored, as most wives are when their husbands are working all the time. When that happens, there's always a friend that appears, and this one was a little serpent. The serpent said, Look, there's an interesting thing about this tree. Don't mind that old buzzard. Have a taste and you will really know something. Well, she had a taste, and when Adam came along, she said, Look, this is okay. So he had a taste. Then God, who walked in the cool of the evening in the garden, saw the pair of them wearing fig leaves and said, What's this? You've got leaves on. The female activates the male, then he is the action, and she has to take the results. They told God what happened, and that ran the usual way. The man blamed the woman, and the woman blamed the snake. Then God cursed the lot of them in increasing degrees. Man got it fairly easy. All he has to do is work and sweat. The woman had to bring forth children in pain, and the serpent had to crawl on his belly for the rest of his life. God kicked them out of the garden and put at the gate two cherubim, two guardians with a flaming sword between them. That's the explanation of why we're out here in the cold and not in the garden. Christianity and Judaism are religions of exile. Man was thrown out of the garden. It seems impossible today, but people actually believed all that until as recently as a half or so century ago. Clergymen, philosophers, government officers, and all. Today we know, and we know right well, that there was never anything of the kind. No Garden of Eden, no anywhere on this earth, no time when the serpent could talk, no prehistoric fall, no exclusion from the garden, no universal flood, no Noah's Ark. The entire history on which our leading Occidental religions have been founded is an anthology of fictions. But these are fictions of a type that we have had, curiously enough, a universal vogue as the founding legends of other religions, too. Their counterparts have turned up everywhere, and yet there was never such a garden, serpent, tree, or deluge. The serpent was the wise one in the garden. Adam and Eve got thrown into the field of time. Quote, In the beginning, this universe was but the self in the form of a man. He looked around and saw nothing but himself. He was just as large as a man and a woman embracing. This self was then divided into two parts, and with that there were a master and a mistress. Therefore his body, by image, as the sage Yajnavalkya declares, is like half of a split pea, and that is why indeed this space is filled by a woman. He united with her, and from that mankind arose. She became a cow, he a bull, and united with her, and from that cattle arose. She became a mare, he a stallion, she an ass, he a donkey, and united with her, and from that solid hoofed animals arose. She became a goat, he was a buck, she became a sheep, he a ram, and united with her, and from that goats and sheep arose. Thus he poured forth all pairing things down to the ants, from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Marriage is a reconstruction of the androgynous. Marriage is a reconstruction of the androgynous. If you marry only for the love affair, it will not last. You must also marry on another level. To reconstruct the androgyne is to make the perfect whole, male and female. Consider the allegory in Plato's Symposium, where it is said by Aristophanes, playfully, yet in the form of the same myth, that the earliest human beings were round and had 4 hands and 4 feet, back and sides forming a circle, one head with 2 faces looking opposite ways, set on a round neck and precisely alike, also 4 ears, 2 privy members, and the remainders to correspond.